All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating real-world story, and it's more than just a proposal for the US Army. Honestly, it's like a masterclass in strategy, a peek behind the curtain at the nuts and bolts of how an idea can actually get noticed by lawmakers.
And that really gets to the core question, right? We all have ideas, but how do you make that jump from just a concept in your head to something that people in power are actually seriously considering? Well, the case we're looking at today doesn't just give us the idea, it lays out the entire playbook.
So, the big idea at the center of all this is the U.S. Army Auxiliary. To put it simply, it's a proposal for a formal group of civilian volunteers to support the Army. Now, keep that in mind, because how they pitch this specific idea, well, that's the key to this whole thing.
Okay, so first things first, you've got your idea. Now what? Well, you run into your first major hurdle, the endorsement challenge. How on earth do you get noticed in a place like Washington, D.C., which is just flooded with ideas?
Because look, having a brilliant idea is, well, it's great. But on its own, it's pretty much invisible to Congress. To be taken seriously, you need other people, the right people, to basically say, hey, you really ought to pay attention to this.
And don't just take my word for it. This quote from congressional staffers, the gatekeepers, it says it all. Their message is crystal clear. Credibility is currency in D.C. Getting those endorsements from people like retired generals or well-known veterans groups, that's what gives an idea the weight it needs to even get looked at.
So we know you need endorsements, but who do you ask? And how do you even approach them? This is where the story gets really interesting. It all comes down to this one piece of feedback, this single light bulb moment that changed everything.
Now, this comment might not seem like a big deal at first, but trust me, it was a total game changer. It came from an adjutant general, that's the top military commander for a U.S. state, and what he said was that having a federally supported Army Auxiliary would be way easier for him than creating a new state defense force, which the state would have to pay for, manage, and find people for, all on its own.
And boom, right there, that was the key. Suddenly, the organizers realized they weren't just pitching an idea anymore. They were offering a solution to a very real problem that state military leaders were already dealing with. That one insight completely unlocked their entire plan.
So once that light bulb went off, everything changed. That vague goal of just getting endorsements suddenly became this super focused, actionable campaign. Let's break down how they turned that insight into a real strategy.
So instead of just, sending letters to anyone and everyone, they got laser focused. Their new target was all 54 adjutants general. Why them? Because that one piece of feedback told them this was the audience that would immediately get why the auxiliary was such a good idea.
And the letter they sent was just brilliant in its simplicity. It was direct, and it had three very clear goals. First, introduce the concept. Second, explain how it helps their state, especially by not costing them any money. And third, just come right out and ask for that letter of endorsement. No beating around the bush.
And get this, they didn't just fire off a bunch of emails that could be deleted in a second. Nope, they went old school, physical mail. Every single packet had the formal letter, plus a custom-made project patch and a decal.
And there's a really smart reason for including that stuff, that patch and decal. It's some clever psychology at play. You can delete an email without a thought, but as the source points out, it's a lot harder to just toss something tangible in the trash. An envelope that has some weight to it, that feels like there's something inside, that's an envelope that gets opened.
This is also super smart. They knew they couldn't send the exact same letter to everyone, so they tailored the message. For states that didn't have a state defense force, the pitch was easy. The auxiliary fills a gap for you. But for states that already had one, the message was very careful. Hey, don't worry, this program won't compete with your existing forces for money or people.
Okay, this is a fantastic strategy, right? But you know what's coming next. A big national mailing campaign, even a really targeted one, isn't free. So let's talk about the actual cost of influence.
And what's so cool about this story is how transparent they are with the numbers. I mean, they calculated it down to the penny. The cost to put together and mail out just one of these packets to an adjutant general was exactly $6.78. That kind of precision really makes this whole effort feel tangible and real.
And it's not some mystery number. Here's exactly what went into that cost. You've got 78 cents for postage, the cost of the paper and ink and envelope, and then the wholesale price of getting the patch and the decal made. That's it. No frills, just the basic cost of doing business.
So how's it going so far? Well, at the time this source material came out,
They'd finished the first wave of mailings. They sent out 31 packets, and they were smart about it. They targeted the adjutants general in states that don't have an active state defense force. That was their most receptive audience.
And the total price tag for that first push? A little over $200. Now, the source is quick to point out this is just one piece of a much bigger, mostly self-funded effort. But still, it shows what's possible.
And this quote really just ties it all together, doesn't it? The insight, the sharp strategy, the physical mail packets, the careful cost tracking. It might not be glamorous, but this is the real work. This is how you move an idea from the outside all the way into the halls of Congress.
All right, so let's pull back for a second. What's the big takeaway from all this? It shows that having influence isn't just about having a good idea. It's about finding the exact right audience, understanding their problems, and then running a smart, focused, and persistent campaign to show them how your idea is their solution.
Which brings us right back to where we started. What does it really take for an idea from an ordinary citizen to get noticed by people in power? Well, this case study suggests it takes a brilliant insight, a targeted plan, and yeah, maybe a couple $100 for postage and patches. It's a fascinating look at how the machinery of influence actually works. And it really makes you think, right? What problem out there could your idea solve? And who's that one person you need to reach to get the ball rolling?